And we are live. How are you all doing here? My name is John Crump, and this is Flying Rich, my reading expert here, because I don't like to read. I like to write, just don't like to read. DLD After Dark is going to be joining us in a second. We have all the breaking news here, and we do have breaking news for you today. And this deals with Maryland. As you might or might not know, I am a certified Maryland firearms instructor, which means I get to teach people how to shoot properly and get concealed carry permits, and also, which Maryland they call license to carry, and also handgun permits, because you need a permit to actually buy a handgun in Maryland. So that is changing maybe. But right now there is a court order saying that the Maryland handgun permit is unconstitutional. This comes out of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals at a 3-judge panel, and which is surprising because the Fourth Circuit is probably the most anti-gun circuit in the country.
Really?
Yes.
Not the 9th or the 11th?
No, the Fourth. It's definitely. This does not go into effect right away. There is a delay.
So a stay.
Yeah, there's a stay, and basically the decision goes into effect in 21 days, or but the state has 14 days to seek an en banc review.
Mm-hmm.
So after 14 days, if they want to go to the 21 days, they can go directly to SCOTUS. I believe that they're going to go for a 14th, like the 14 days to try to get en banc, because the Fourth Circuit is not pro-gun.
So is this a single judge on the Fourth Circuit or a 3-judge panel?
3-judge panel.
Okay.
The circuit's always panels. Panels are en banc. En banc means the full bench. Mm-hmm. But when you appeal to the circuit court, the district court is a single judge. When you appeal to a circuit court, federal circuit court, you go to a 3-judge panel. Usually, there's very few exceptions. In California, for example, they somehow skipped the whole entire 3-judge panel, went directly to an en banc. But usually that does not happen. So we're going to look through this decision. It was by a 2-1 margin for the good guys. And it was filed by Maryland Shall Issue, which is a great organization.
Yeah.
Warsaw, I did not see your email quite yet. Atlantic Guns, which I will have to say has some incredibly fast shipping. I've ordered stuff from them, and I've gotten it the next day.
Yeah, I don't know how they do that. Like, they usually get stuff out, like it arrives within 2 days of placing the order.
Yeah, well, we're kind of close to them.
Yeah, they just throw it over the border.
Yeah, then it's a woman named Deborah K. Miller and another woman named Susan Visa. And there's basically a bunch of women. There's another woman named Anna, another woman named Christine, and Firearms Policy Coalition also filed an amicus brief.
Cool.
Nice.
Okay, so let's go ahead and read it here, and we'll get going.
You wanna do
Hold on
this,
for 1 second.
Rich? Yep. Rich, you wanna read through?
Yeah.
You want me to?
Yeah, I'll do it. You read the last.
You could do. We'll stagger. Each word will alternate each other.
In four-part harmony.
Yep. Yep.
All right, I was just turning on my secondary monitor so I can actually bring this up over here.
I literally just got my Maryland permit as a Virginia resident. Got
Well,
my
this is
Maryland
not
permit.
this is not the license to carry.
This is I need a permit to purchase a gun in Maryland.
Like a point card, firearms
Just like
outdoor
New York.
identification.
That's what I get for showing up late. My apologies.
All right, so it was argued in front of a 3-judge panel. Like I said, it was a 2-1 decision. So let's just start with the background. So Rich, go ahead.
Plaintiffs first brought their Second Amendment challenge to Maryland's handgun licensure law in 2016. The district court originally dismissed the challenge for lack of Article 3 standing, but we reversed and remanded for a decision on the merits. Maryland shall issue versus Hogan. On remand of the district court, again rejected plaintiffs' claims, this time holding that Maryland's handgun licensure law did not violate the Second Amendment. So
Okay, stop right there. Basically what happened is the first time they didn't look at the merits of the case at all. They just said, you don't have standing to sue. So then they threw it out. So they refiled again with the more documentation about their standing, and then it was ruled constitutional. But that was before the Bruin decision, which changed a lot.
Okay.
So when Bruin decision first happened, a lot of people were telling me, well, it doesn't look like it's making a difference. I was like, dude, it's going to take time. It is going to take time. And it looks like over the past couple of years, we've been seeing the fruits of the labor. And it's just not about concealed carry. That was when the Bruin decision first passed. I told everyone that's the smallest part of this decision.
Yeah.
It's the elimination of the 2-step test known as intermediate scrutiny that I got very excited about. All right, so keep on going, Rich. You don't have to read any of the notes, but...
Okay, the law at issue, which the parties called the handgun qualification license requirement, originated as one component of Maryland's Firearms Safety Act and is now found at 5...
It's going to tell you the code is. Basically, after a mass shooting, Maryland went off the deep end and passed that around the same time as the New York Safe Act.
No one may sell, rent, transfer a handgun unless the recipient presents a valid handgun qualification license and likewise says that person may purchase, rent, or receive a handgun only if person possesses a valid handgun qualification license. So in simple terms, the challenged law imposes criminal liability on both parties to a handgun transaction, sale, rental, or gift, unless the recipient has the required license, criminalizing knowing participation in receipt of a regulated firearm in violation, blah. The law then defines someone gets such a handgun qualification license. There are 4 requirements. The applicant must be at least 21 years of age, must be a resident of the state, he must complete a firearm safety training course, and he must undergo...
I teach.
A Maryland instructor. Yeah.
Must undergo an investigation, background check, show he's not prohibited by federal...
Basically, you have to go through like a next check, but before you even buy a gun. Then you have to go through another next check.
Federal or state law from purchasing a handgun. If an applicant meets these 4 requirements, properly fills out an application and pays the required fee of $50 for his rights, then the Secretary of the State Police shall issue him a handgun qualification license within 30 days.
Yeah, the
Plaintiff,
$50 fee is what I have a huge issue. I have a huge issue with everything, but the $50
All of it.
fee
Yeah.
is something that. All right, we got a super chat here.
Rose.
I'm just gonna keep these until the end.
Yeah. Stick around to the end, then we'll review them together.
All right, keep on going.
Bruin affected a sea change in Second Amendment law. Before Bruin, the courts of appeals, including our own, used a two-step interest balancing framework in analyzing firearm regulations.
Also known as intermediate scrutiny.
We first asked whether challenged regulation burdened conduct protected by the Second Amendment. If it did, then we would assess the regulation's constitutionality using means and scrutiny. Yet the Supreme Court held in Bruin that this approach was one step too many. In its place, the court supplied an analysis centered on the Second Amendment text and history. The court explained when the Second Amendment's plain text, I can't read the rest. You got to scroll up, John. Plain text covers.
Yeah, basically it's talking about Bruin here, so we can just skip all that.
An individual's conduct.
Okay. Yeah, it just goes into Bruin. So let's just go down to the discussion.
Maryland's law fails the new Bruin test, as will explain. Plaintiffs have shown that Maryland's handgun licensure law regulations a course of conduct protected by the Second Amendment, and Maryland has not established that the law is consistent with our nation's history and tradition. Maryland's law restricts Second Amendment, and I missed that part, but the first question Bruin asks is whether the plaintiff's proposed course of conduct is protected by the Second Amendment's plain text. The text operative clause, see Heller, provides that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. U.S. Constitution, Second Amendment. To meet their burden at the stage, the plaintiffs must prove two things: that they're among the people entitled to the right, and that their proposed course of conduct is covered by the Second Amendment's plain text, namely keeping and bearing arms. See Bruin. At first blush, the answer to this initial question seems obvious. Here, plaintiffs allege that they are adult citizens who are legally eligible to own firearms, noting the plaintiffs could lawfully purchase and own a handgun absent the challenged law, so they fall within the amendment's definition of the people, see Bruin, noting that the people whom the Second Amendment protects includes, at minimum, ordinary law-abiding citizens, and plaintiffs have hearsay that they seek to own firearms for lawful purposes. At a point that Maryland does not contest. Indeed, though the amendment's plain text extends prima facie to all instruments that constitute bearable arms, the Supreme Court has held that the specific weapons here, handguns, are protected arms, so that there appears to be little room for debate on this score.
We're going to get to the questions in a little bit here.
Yet there are a few wrinkles to iron out. To start, you might note that the amendment's text protects only the right to keep and bear arms under the Constitution's Second Amendment, but on its face, the challenged law says nothing about whether plaintiffs keep or bear handguns. It only restricts the plaintiff's ability to purchase, rent, or receive them. How then does the law regulate the right to keep and bear arms? The answer is not
That's
complicated.
basically what Maryland was arguing. They're arguing that, hey, we're not saying you can't own arms. We're just preventing you from the means of getting the arms.
Yeah. Wonderful. The answer is not complicated. If you do not already own a handgun, then the only way to keep and bear one is to get one, either through sale, rental, or a gift, and the challenged law cuts off all three avenues. at least for those who do not comply with its terms. That brings us to the next wrinkle. The challenged law does not permanently prohibit plaintiffs from acquiring or carrying handguns. Instead, it imposes certain requirements that they must meet before they can obtain a handgun, and those requirements rely on objective criteria, which plaintiffs admit they can satisfy.
Okay, remember, right delayed is a right what?
Denied.
Right.
Denied, yes, of course. Once they do so, the law commands that the state shall issue them a handgun qualification license. But even though Maryland's law does not prohibit the plaintiff from owning handguns, at some time in the future, it still prohibits them from owning guns now.
A right
In
delayed
order,
is a
right denied.
Denied. Yep.
Also, it's not fair to tax a right. In order to
Yep.
get a handgun, plaintiffs still have to follow all of the law steps, and although they will be able to complete each one, it is impossible to do so right away.
a right delayed
Plaintiffs,
is
a right denied.
Mm-hmm.
Plaintiffs can't receive a license to legally acquire a handgun until the state reviews their applications, which can take up to 30 days. So, no matter what plaintiffs do, there will be a period of up to 30 days where their ability to get a handgun is completely out of their control. In other words, it does not permanently bar the plaintiffs from owning handguns. The challenged law deprives them of that ability until their application is approved, no matter what they do.
a right delayed is a right denied.
And taxing a right is
Yeah,
not proper.
if you look at
Absolutely.
Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, we can get into that.
Mhm.
Our question at Bruin's first step is simply whether plaintiffs have made prima facie case that challenged law violates the Second Amendment. So they just need to show that the law regulates a course of conduct that falls within the amendment's plain text, their ability to possess and carry weapons in case of confrontation. Nothing in the amendment's text or Bruin says that it protects only against laws that permanently deprive people of the ability to keep and bear arms.
Yeah, like Maryland was trying to argue. Maryland's argument was like, hey, they can still get it. It's just going to take them some time. They're not permanently barred from owning a handgun. But what the judges are saying here is the same. That's not what Bruin says. It's you
Yeah.
barred them from.
You can sit anywhere you want in the bus. If you fill out this form, pay a tax, and 30 days later, we'll tell you if you can.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. All right. So keep on going.
See, nothing in the Second Amendment text draws a home public distinction with respect to the right and keep and bear arms. Yet, under the challenge scheme, an applicant without a firearm cannot possess or carry one until they're
Okay.
approved.
Hold on. I just want to answer this. No, the judge is saying what Maryland's argument is. The judges disagree with what Maryland is saying here.
Well, two disagreed. One, I would love to
Yeah.
read the dissenting
We
comments.
will. We'll get there.
Yet, under the challenge scheme, an applicant without a firearm cannot possess or carry one until they are approved, a process that can take 30 days. And the law's waiting period could be, well, the critical time in which the applicant expects to face danger. So, temporary deprivation of that plaintiff's allege is a facially plausible Second Amendment violation. Accordingly, Maryland's law regulates the conduct that falls within the Second Amendment's plain text. Plaintiff's challenge thus satisfies the first step of Bruin's test, and we must proceed to the second step. Has Maryland shown that its law is justified by history and tradition?
Which, no. There, and two of the three judges decided dark. Go.
Hold on. Gonna pull it up. Maryland has not met its burden. At Bruin's second step, Maryland must provide historical evidence that justifies its law. To do this, it may identify a, quote, historical analog demonstrating that its law falls within a historically recognized exception to the right to keep and bear arms.
Basically,
Bruin.
they show an analog, some type of law during the founding era that showed that they were legally allowed, that there was a law at the time that allowed them to do what they were trying to do now.
Yeah. But the two historical examples that Maryland cites are not relevantly similar to the challenged law, and it has offered no other historical evidence to justify its law. Indeed, Maryland admitted at oral, that it had not presented a proper historical analog for the challenge law, noting that that it had identified no founding era laws that, quote, required advance permission before a citizen could purchase a firearm.
Yeah, basically, if you listen to the oral arguments, it was like, well, what laws do you have? And they're like, well, we don't really have one, but we have these other laws which aren't like it, but we're giving these anyway. So
Yeah.
use your imagination, just bend it a little bit.
A historical tradition of prohibiting dangerous people from owning firearms does not justify Maryland's law.
Yeah.
It
Okay. Well,
states,
one of the decisions that one of the not the decisions, the law that they gave as an analog said that a dangerous person is not allowed to own a firearm. And the funny thing about it's not really funny, it's actually quite sad. But the law that they used as an example was stuff like racist laws, like, oh, blacks with the founding era were not allowed to own firearms.
We miss
Native Americans
racism
were
and
not
want to
allowed
bring
to
it
own
back in
firearms.
this law.
yeah,
Catholics were banned from owning firearms in certain spots. The Irish were
yes,
banned from stuff like that. So
showing their
We've been
true colors.
racist before. We can do it again.
We
like I
miss
said,
openly.
we're gonna get to the super chats
Maryland's
and more boring.
historical evidence is scant at best. It first asserts that its law is justified by the historical limitations on the ability of dangerous people to own firearms. See appellees, blah, blah, blah. But Maryland points to no historical laws for support. Instead, it cites various provisions of the modern U.S. Code that prohibit certain categories of people, including felons, maybe even pedos, those addicted to a controlled substance, and those convicted of a domestic violence misdemeanor from owning firearms. Maryland simply assumes that those federal prohibitions are justified by a historical dangerousness exception, and
And I've
because
already
Maryland
talked about
says,
that, how
yeah,
that was all the racist laws.
yeah,
And when I say I mean they were on its face racist.
yeah, racist in text and spirit.
Yeah, keep on going.
Maryland says the challenge law is ostensibly designed to prevent those same groups of people from acquiring handguns. It also falls within the same dangerousness exception. Seems like this is more dangerous than anything they're talking about. Though Maryland has not mustered independent historical support for a dangerousness exception, other judges have thoroughly canvassed the historical record. It's case law. And they tend to agree that history and tradition support an exception affording legislatures the power to prohibit dangerous people from possessing guns. But even if the modern federal hold on, I lost my spot. Sorry. Modern federal prohibitions that Maryland cites are all constitutional because they fit within a historical tradition allowing states to prohibit dangerous people from owning firearms. That says nothing about Maryland's law. That is because its law is not relevantly similar to the laws allegedly compromising that tradition. Bruin is clear that a historical analog only justifies a modern law if the two are relevantly similar. The metrics that we use to decide whether two laws are relevantly similar are one, how, and two, why the regulations burden a law abiding citizen's right. In other words, we ask one, whether modern and where's it go to next? That's all case law.
Historical.
And historical regulations impose a comparable burden on the right. And two, whether that burden is comparably justified. Here, Maryland suggests that the justification may well be the same. prevent dangerous people from getting weapons, but the burden is markedly different. The historical dangerousness laws targeted people already deemed dangerous by the state and subjected them to penalties if they possessed firearms. See this case law, blah, blah, blah. Maryland's law operates through an entirely different mechanism. It does not merely identify a dangerous group of people and prohibit them from acquiring handguns. Other statutes already occupy that field. Instead, it prohibits all people from acquiring handguns, which is the way that Maryland wants it, until they can prove that they are not dangerous. So Maryland's law burdens all people, even if only temporarily, which is exactly what we're talking about. A right delayed is a right denied. Even if only temporarily, rather than just a class of people whom the state has already deemed presumptively dangerous.
Basically, you have to prove your innocence before you can
Correct.
get anything,
Yeah,
which
it
is not
almost
how
seems
it's
like
supposed to work.
yeah, it almost seems like this would be a perfect argument for any state that makes the citizens get a FOID
No,
card.
we'll get to that.
The point is that different mechanisms often impose different burdens, and courts must consider the mechanism that the challenge law chooses to carry out its goal when evaluating whether it is, quote, relevantly similar to a historical law. So it's case law, and it picks up here.
Right, you can go down here.
The modern federal laws that Maryland has cited and the historical laws allegedly supporting a tradition of prohibiting dangerous people from owning firearms all acted through one mechanism, punishing certain classes of supposedly dangerous people if they don't give up their arms or prove they are not dangerous. But that is a different mechanism than making every person seek the government's permission before they can even acquire arms, preemptively disarming every person until they can each prove that they are not dangerous burdens, a far broader swath of people. It is not our place as a court to judge a law's wisdom or weigh competing policy values. After all, the Second Amendment is the very product of an interest balancing by the people. Bruin, yada yada. If they disapprove, if they disapprove, then the people can draw a different balancing using Article five's amendment process.
Make an
Basically,
amendment to the
that's like
Constitution.
how you amend the Constitution.
Yeah. But under the Second Amendment's current balance, Maryland's law cannot survive. Even assuming a historical tradition of prohibiting, quote, dangerous people from owning firearms, Maryland chose a different mechanism and thus imposed different burdens from the historical analogs that it asserts.
Yeah, basically saying you gave us these analogs, but they have nothing to do with everything. Rich, take over.
A historical tradition of requiring militia training does not justify Maryland's law. Maryland's second argument is that the law is justified by historical tradition of laws requiring training for members of the militia. For support, Maryland cites founding era state and federal militia laws, but its argument is without merit as these founding era laws placed no restrictions on acquiring or owning firearms. Militia
Basically, what they
training
were trying
laws,
to. Okay, go ahead.
militia training laws did not burden a Second Amendment right at all, and so they cannot be relevantly similar to Maryland's law.
Basically, they're saying, well, if you wanted to join the the continental militia, the colonial militia, whatever, you would go to training. But what the judges were saying was like that didn't prevent them from getting guns. This is saying that they were training for militia. It wasn't a requirement to own
Many
a gun.
colonies, many colonies and early states required, with some exceptions, that all able-bodied men of certain age participate in the militia,
And just jumped on here. This is
and generally required members of the militia to provide their own weapons and show up for regular training. But these militia laws never conditioned keeping or bearing arms on participation in militia training. Accordingly, these militia training laws imposed no burden on the right of keeping and bearing arms. Instead, the service burden that these laws imposed was divorced from gun ownership. You could not get out of training just by ditching your weapon. Indeed, that would open you up to even more sanctions. And just because you owned a weapon did not mean you had to train. If you were a woman or an older man who owned arms, for instance, there was no need to appear on parade grounds. You only had to train if you were in militia. In other words, these laws imposed a service obligation on militiamen, not gun owners. The obligation applied regardless of whether you owned a weapon. So none of the militia laws placed any restrictions on gun ownership.
Yeah, Maryland was trying to throw some spaghetti at a wall and see what stuck.
Yep.
Consider, for example, the New Jersey, which in 1778 passed a law requiring members of the militia to assemble properly armed and accoutred twice in the year at such times in places as the field officers or majority of them shall direct for the purpose of training exercises. And in case of absence from the training, the law imposed a monetary penalty based on rank. Law like imposed a monetary penalty on militia members who failed to acquire the proper arms and munition.
Yeah, New Jersey said you had to get these certain guns and you had to have this many rounds. And if you didn't
Wild.
get that, then you would be fined.
Another
That's beautiful.
example is Delaware, which passed a similar militia training law in 1782. That law provided that the militia shall be duly exercised and instructed once in every month and required its members to bring their own firearms. Like New Jersey, Delaware imposed monetary penalties on militiamen failing to keep his arms by him at all times, ready and fit for service, and who shall neglect or refuse to appear on the parade, not having reasonable excuse. In summary, these laws sanction militia members for not failing to show up for training and failing to bring their own arms. You could not evade those sanctions if you didn't have a weapon, and just because you had one didn't necessarily subject you to them. Thus,
The Delaware law basically said you had to have a gun on you, basically ready near you. You didn't have to specifically be on you, but you had to be able to
you had to be ready to
acquire
go.
the gun very quickly.
Wasn't
Thus,
that
these
originally?
militia training laws are not valid historical analog for justifying Maryland's law. Militia training laws imposed no burden on the right to keep and bear arms. They did not condition possessing and carrying arms on attending militia training, nor did they limit in any way an individual's ability to acquire a firearm. These laws placed service burdens on being in the militia, not on being a gun owner. And because they imposed a different burden, the militia training laws are not relevantly similar to Maryland's law.
Which Maryland tried to
Maryland,
claim that the militia training laws were analog, which were absolutely ridiculous.
Maryland has identified no other traditions that could serve as historical analog, nor has it presented any other evidence that the challenged law is consistent with the nation's nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. So it has not met the burden under Bruin, and its law cannot survive plaintiff's Second Amendment challenge. In Maryland, if you are a law abiding citizen who wants a handgun, you must wait up to 30 days for the state to give you its blessing. Until then, there is nothing you can do. The issue is out of your control. Maryland has not shown that this regime is consistent with our nation's historical tradition of firearms regulation. There might well be a tradition of prohibiting dangerous people from owning firearms, but under the Second Amendment, mechanism matters. And Maryland has not pointed to any historical laws that operated by preemptively depriving all citizens of firearms to keep them out of dangerous hands. Plaintiffs' challenge thus must succeed, and the court's contrary decision must be.
Yeah, the
affirmed.
district court ruled for Maryland at the time.
Oh, wow.
Do you want to read the dissenting?
Yeah, yeah. I want to know what the nutnig thinks.
Okay, Dark, you can take over here.
You mean take over?
Mm-hmm.
Where it says in this
And this is a judge right here.
okay, in this facial constitutional challenge to a non-discretionary handgun permitting law, the majority fundamentally misapplies. The majority bases its holding on the premises that if a law affects a prospective handgun purchaser's ability to obtain a handgun now, the law is presumptively unconstitutional. Beautiful, beautiful. This sweeping rule flies directly in the face of Bruin's discussion of non discretionary shall issue laws and is not supported by any Supreme Court precedent. Simply stated, the majority's hyper aggressive view of the Second Amendment would render presumptively unconstitutional most non discretionary laws in this. In this country, requiring a permit to purchase a handgun.
Which I agree. Which I think it should.
Yeah. In defending this result, the majority attempts to pound a square peg into a round hole by treating the non discretionary shall issue law before us no differently than a discretionary may issue law. This pounding maneuver fails to account for the material differences between may issue and shall issue laws, distinctions that the Supreme Court warned in Bruin would require additional consideration in determining the constitutionality of shall issue regimes. By failing to incorporate into the Bruin framework these analytical distinctions, my colleagues reach the very result the Supreme Court cautioned against in Bruin, namely,
Go ahead.
namely casting aside a shall issue permitting law because the statute results in some delay to a prospective buyer who wishes to purchase a handgun. In reaching its conclusion, the majority also rushes to final judgment, bypassing the district's court fundamental role of weighing the evidence in the mixed question of law.
You mean intermediate scrutiny?
Law and fact. And doubling down on this lack of judicial restraint, the majority strikes down the entire statute without even a passing reference to the presumption of severability afforded to the statute under Maryland law. I respectfully dissent.
Yeah, so then she goes, why she just sends blah blah blah, whatever. And if you want to read the rest of it, you can read the rest of it. But let's go ahead and hit some of the comments out of here and then get going. But right now, there is a 14-day stay for the Maryland government to request an en banc hearing, which means the full bench will hear it. And there is a 21 say total because they can go to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court to stay it.
Wow.
So we'll see. I don't think it's dead yet, but I do think that it is dying. So
Tis dying. Tis dying.
Meaning the Maryland requirement for a permit to purchase. Do you get one permit, or do you have to get a permit for each handgun?
it's one permit.
Okay.
All right. So it is dying.
But I find it
Yes, sir.
interesting that they don't talk about taxation of your right, that you have to pay a $50 fee. I mean, they talk about a 30-day process and, a right delayed is a right denied. I agree with that.
But then they don't bring, and this is something that people have become way too comfortable with. Actually, Ben Dover in the chat, sorry, it's hard to say his name, Mr. Ben Dover said that in Maryland there's an additional $10 fee with every, is it handgun purchase or firearm purchase, in addition to taxes and other fees and background check. I had no idea about that. We've kind of come into this place where whether it's the government, the state or whomever, they're just charging fees for whether it's like the NFA, absolutely unconstitutional, right? Imagine if we were to take that and say you had to purchase a tax stamp to go to church on Sundays or to pray every day,
Freedom of
or
speech,
freedom of speech,
the
or
freedom of
any
press.
any other
We're,
natural
we're
right.
not stopping you from the freedom of speech. We're just delaying it 30 days and charging you a fee.
or 9 to 12 months and charging $200. That's insanity.
You
That
mean
is
like a suppressor?
exactly. That is absolute insanity.
All right, we're gonna hit the questions in 1 second here, but then I know there's some really good questions and a couple super chats that we got to get to as well.
You want me to pull them up here?
If you want.
Rose Blight, always great to see you, Rose Blight. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Rose says, glad to hear this news. About time these anti-gun laws get struck down. On I got a new typewriter the other day, Chicago style.
Aha.
Chicago
Nice.
typewriter. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you for the super chat. That means a lot.
Rose is always super supportive. Appreciate that.
Right. Let's just go to the second one. No,
One car fast says, who's going to challenge the Hughes Amendment?
It's been challenged through different ways. What's up, Maddie? It's been challenged through a bunch of different cases, and it is always being challenged right now. So far, what?
Because I can't.
For all of you guys out there, I have a 6-year-old, and that's how that was actually very respectful.
I was a 10-year-old.
Well, I know. I'm just saying that.
But yeah, the Hughes Amendment. There's been the Hughes Amendment. There's been challenges to it. So far, they have not made it very far, but hopefully one day it will make it and break through.
Yeah. Xanthi Misfits, curious as to who appointed the judges on the circuit panel.
One is a G.W. Bush appointee. Another one is a Trump appointee, and the dissenting judge is an Obama appointee.
Interesting.
Who could have guessed those things?
And shout out to Jordan, by the way.
Yeah, I saw him. Jordan popped up on my channel too. That's awesome. Be Great 100 says, there you go. That's for you, Jordan. Bianchi v. Frosch, Maryland assault weapons ban was heard December 6, 2022 in the Fourth Circuit, and we still don't have a decision. Any ideas why the decision has taken so long?
There's only one way they can decide.
And a lot of times it's because they know what they have to do in order to be consistent with the Supreme Court, and they don't want to. So they delayed as much as possible.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. So, so do we now get to sue Maryland for making us give our time and money for an infringement?
Amen, brother.
If the case, when the case comes to its final conclusion, you can definitely do that, but you're probably not going to win.
Yeah,
there's a lot of immunity and stuff like that, but you can sue anyone for anyone. I just don't think that you're going to win.
I believe I don't remember exactly when it was, but when we first met, John, you had said you can file a can of soup. You can file anything. One Car Fast says the NFA is a tax on the Second Amendment.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of challenges to that. None have made it quite far, but hopefully one day it will. There is a case called Murdoch versus Pennsylvania deals with the Jehovah's Witness that was going around door to door, giving out pamphlets and whatever. And Pennsylvania tried to say that he needed a solicitor's license to do that. He sued, and the Supreme Court ruled. This is a Supreme Court case. This is 50s, I believe. The Supreme Court ruled that you cannot place a direct tax on a right. Now that makes me wonder, how is the NFA legal? Because that is a direct tax on a right. Just getting the court to do.
Because of the affray, the dangerous and affray.
Tech money. So they cut out the HQL out. So they cut the HQL out. Yes, but it is stayed for 21 days, 14 days to seek an en banc, and 21 days to seek whatever other remedy they want to seek, including going to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Same gentleman, Chaco says, does this open the door? And thank you, by the way, for the super chat. $5 super chat. Does this open the doors for a lawsuit against Maryland? Same kind of question. For the time and money we gave for this infringement.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you can sue them for anything. I just don't think
Yeah.
that you'll win, and I think you're going to be out more money than you will ever see.
Highly
Right.
unlikely. But anyone can sue anyone for anything, right? Astreth K says the Texas suppressor case got yeeted for standing. If a Texan wanted to add their name to the case, would it have to start from zero?
No, you can file for a motion to intervene in the case, and basically,
Add plaintiffs?
yeah, it's kind of like that. It's like Vanderstock, right? You had Vanderstock, and you had all these places that filed motions to intervene in the case, but that's going to cost you money.
Roger that.
You had to get
Now,
your own lawyer and everything else like that. File it's not as easy. I was
yeah.
just saying, hey, I want to add my name to the case. Now you can contact them and say, I want to join you in the case, and maybe they will add you, but they don't have to add you. But if you file a motion to intervene, then you'll definitely be added if the court admits it. But yeah,
Yeah.
the best bet is to let this case play out. You might have to wait a little bit, and because if they do issue an injunction, it's probably going to be injunctions for the named plaintiffs only, but it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Andy Lipska says it costs a lot more than just the HQL because the training course itself ran me $340 and then an 8 hours of lost work to listen all
Oh,
day and then shoot 3 rounds.
Yeah, but
ouch.
then you also have to take in account of how much it's going to cost to sue,
For sure.
which is not
Yeah.
cheap at all. So
FJB and his AFT hashtag free CRS. CRS, Matt, we love you. And we're with you, bud.
yeah. All right. Any other questions? Actually, I got like 2 other stories that I've been working on, but dude, I just haven't been able to get to them. This broke. I was about to film the video on the other one, so probably do one tomorrow and the next day, maybe.
You got a lot going on, man. I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, I'm about to drop something that is going to be exciting in the gear on the gear side of things in our community. You guys are going to be pumped. Just wait. It's very glowy blue DLD type stuff.
A channel member for I think Dark Channel.
I believe so. He may be a channel member on yours as well. Thank you,
All right.
Luminous. I wonder what the F do not comply and don't talk about your plans ever effing means. I'm confused. We know they are wrong and evil and they will infringe. Why comply? You know, that's an
I like
excellent
my
question.
freedom.
We had a show on the Uncensored podcast on Rumble. For you guys that don't know, every Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern.
We do
Uh,
uncensored.
Yep, on Rumble. It's called Uncensored Podcast. And we've talked about a bunch of different things, but we had that exact conversation. And look, everyone's got different lines. And a lot of times we talk about the line and where it is exactly. And sometimes we're not as specific as we may like. The number one thing that came up is, well, when it comes to my front door, well, it's already there. you know, we talked about it and said, okay, well, when they start taking our money, when they start overtaxing, when they start impacting our life, when they start taking elections, when they start I mean, everything that we listed is already occurring. So you guys draw your own conclusions on that one, but feels like we may already be there.
All right. Liberty is always at risk. Our line is our own.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Any other questions before we get out of here?
We keep seeing one of ours fall one by one until eventually there isn't one to stand.
That is true. I mean,
Yeah.
Nikki's dancing behind me. That's my 6-year-old there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Kids are the best. Yeah. My daughter, I'm pretty sure my daughter is the coolest person in the world. Fighting from your mailbox is your last resort, literally. Totally agree. I totally agree. And this is the time. Like, look, this is the only call to action. And it's okay, John. I'm not going to say what you probably think I'm going to say. This is my only call to action. Okay. Every single voice out there is important. Okay. So if you're in here and you're having this conversation with us, it's highly likely that you are involved, you care, and you're passionate about this. And if you have a mind of freedom, liberty, and independence, and you want to do literally whatever you can to preserve our rights, our natural rights that were given to us by God, that are supposed to be protected by the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of your state, then one of the most simple things you could do is get your voice out there. Start a channel, right? Look, this is not a popular thing to do. YouTube is going to try to crush you, stop you. They're going to try to shadow ban you. You're going to be impacted negatively by the people that are in control, but use their own tools against them. That is why we do this, and we need every voice out there. So it is just as easy for you guys to go do the same thing and start a channel and have these kinds of conversations. Every voice.
This is something I wanted to touch on. Thank you for bringing this up. I almost forgot about it. So
Matt Michael says, how will this impact the New York ghost gun crackdown? Can this ruling be used and New York licensed to own? Excellent question.
well, the ghost gun crackdown, that would be I don't think this is going to help that so much because it's a different issue. I do believe that will be knocked down as well. But license to carry around the state, if my mouse is dead. Okay, no, license to carry around the state. If this gets upheld, then this is going to affect a lot of different places, including New York, including other places as well, like Illinois, and stuff like that. This will definitely help out all those because you're basically establishing case law.
Yeah.
And what will happen in these other cases is they will file what's called a writ of supplemental authority, which saying, hey, look at this case. This circuit court over here decided this. So take this into consideration when you're deciding your case.
Yep. Be Great 100. Oh, sorry. We clicked on it at the same time. Be Great 100 says, thank you, gentlemen, for everything you do for the 2A community. Thank you guys, man. It's all for y'all. And actually doing things like liking, subscribing, sharing, doing those kind of small things to support other channels that are doing these kinds of things. It is free. It takes an extra second, but it will make an impact on the other channels positively. So, yeah, do that. It's the quickest and easiest thing you could do to support. Thank you, by the way. Cordell Hines says Maryland will do any and everything it can to delay this for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that is true. They definitely will try to do that.
Yep. And Run Gun says a Chicago judge recently ruled in the case of a felon convicted multiple times that the statute barring felons from possessing handguns is unconstitutional. I
But yeah,
totally
there's been
agree.
several cases, and I think that's going to go that way. My personal opinion is if you committed a crime, once you get out of prison, since you're no longer locked up, you're obviously not so dangerous that you shouldn't be on the street. So therefore, I believe that you should get all your rights back. And there is breaking news, Mark. Oh no, I thought you were saying there was no breaking news. I was like, where even?
Oh yeah, Mark Tucker said, "Oh no,
Mark
breaking
Tucker,
news."
it's good breaking news. So
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, we don't typically jump on for great news, but there's been a lot of good news or positive news, and I think, and let me know how you guys feel about it. It comes from a lot of us becoming active and getting engaged, and a lot of other people engaging and fighting. This Yeah, I'll stop there. Yep.
Thank you for the video. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Welcome to the community. Yeah. Michigan, all these gun laws, if you look at over the past few years, like since like even the late 90s, our gun rights have expanded. Which is
Well, it's
amazing.
kind of it moves one way and the opposite direction other ways.
Well, it's like two
As of
two
a few
steps
weeks ago,
forward,
we
one
had
step back.
braces in receivers were illegal.
It's two steps forward, one step back.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now we have braces receivers, and more
The
states.
receivers, the Supreme Court, there's a stay on the receiver rule unless it's a polymer 80.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, we also have a current injunction for forced reset triggers. We have there's some good positive movement and good traction, and that sets the stage for other things in the future. And of course,
Right.
if that doesn't, if we don't get the results that we want, we can always just charge our rifles and go to work.
Okay, I did not say that, YouTube.
JK, that was satire, and I'm a comedian, and I'm just totally joking right now.
Sometimes it's one step forward, two steps back, but overall, we've been advancing more.
Yeah. And there's also been more attempts at encroachment. It's a game, right? It's literal volleyball for our natural rights. And if God gave us these rights, however could a man take them? And I heard that one of my people was accidentally banned or hidden from my channel. So as soon as the stream is done, Andy Lipsco, I got you. I'll go in there and fix that. He said mistakes were made. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. All right, guys. If there's no other questions, we're gonna get out of here. We've been on for an hour, and
man,
yeah, I have some other videos I got to get filmed. I just haven't had a chance to film it. I will give you guys a little hint of what my next video will be. And I haven't done it. I haven't filmed the video yet, but the article is written here. So I will give you a little reading assignment.
What's the hint?
The book, no problem, man. I'm glad. I'm glad you liked it. Your hard copy, I don't have any more in stock right now. You can still get on Amazon, stuff like that. But I will get you a signed hard copy once I get more in, which should ship soon. They're selling a little bit better than what I thought. You can still get them at bookstores and Amazon.
You already sold out of all those hard copies. The ones that you had.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. But like you can still get it online. Just I don't have any myself to sign and get out.
Dude, that's incredible. That's
actually
awesome.
I gotta get the next 2 orders are all almost taken care of.
That's awesome.
I've actually stopped taking orders for signed copies until I get them in.
Yeah, good move.
Thank you, Toby Half, for everything that you do as well.
Yeah, all you guys, and a lot of you guys are super active. You have channels. Get your voice out there. I have a lot of people hit me up all the time, and they say, "Dark, like, what do I do to start a channel? Make a video and then publish it."
Yeah, my book was number 2 in gun-related books.
Really?
It was. I'm not sure if it still is or not.
You sold more legit books than Hunter. That is hilarious.
Which, I guess it's not anymore, but it was. My last book got up to number 1 for guns. So number 2, meh.
Frag Out wrote a nice review.
I know. Got 3 ratings. It's freaking awesome.
That's awesome.
Kurt wrote a review. Pete, which is G-Webs.
Nice.
And Frag Out.
I'll be going in there to do review for you as well. I got you.
Yeah. We have legit people in the community writing books and others that can barely read.
Is he making fun of me?
No, I don't think he's making fun of you.
You sure? I kind of feel like that was pointed towards me.
I don't think so. One car fast says that Rich, do you get your thing here? I don't know. Like people on my channel just like to come after you.
It's
I'm
okay,
trying
Sonny.
No, but I don't think Montana was talking about you. Montana is also a channel member. Thank you so much. We have Gert out there as well. Hi, Gort.
Gort. That's my guy. I don't see Andy Lipsco being hidden. Sorry, guys. This is.
It could have been a YouTube thing.
All right, guys. I'm gonna go to the beach.
All right, you enjoy the beach. It could have been a YouTube thing though, Dark. If like they thought he was spamming, they can.
Dude, there's other people in here that should not be hidden. I didn't realize that. Man, that's crazy. Yeah, I'll look into it, guys. My apologies. It was an error, Kurt. Look, if you've ever been a moderator on a channel and put your phone in your pocket or something like that, it accidents happen. So we'll make sure you get taken care of. And yeah, like John said, it could have been a YouTube thing, or maybe it
YouTube
was
thing.
an error.
YouTube can time you out if they feel that you're spamming on the channel, and there's nothing that channel owner can do. It just has to run its course.
Interesting. Yeah, I can't see him in there now, but we'll figure it out. We'll get to the bottom of it.
I think there's like a 5-minute, 90-minute in.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous that Rich is going to the beach. Like it's 45 degrees and raining out here. I got soaked. I met with that guy CTS Custom Glocks and did a little hangout session and was standing outside in the rain for like an hour. So that was fun.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Be sure to follow Flying Rich or Flying Rich Firearms and Flying Rich on YouTube. But Dark have a pretty cool channel called DLD After Dark, where he does a show on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays around 10 p.m. ish.
There you go. Around 10 p.m. ish Eastern. Yeah.
Eastern, yeah. And Rich and Dark are both on Uncensored on Mondays on Rumble. If you go to Uncensored podcast on Rumble, you'll be able to find us.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Misfit. The 3-month membership later, guys.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you so much there. And with that, we are out of here and have fun.